I'm Sam.
And this is Gabe.
And this is Coaster Wars.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Coaster Wars podcast, where today we are talking about the future. And by that, I mean bucket list coasters. These are two coasters neither of us have experienced, one in Europe, one down in Florida, and this is going to be a really fun episode.
Oh my gosh. If anybody heard me last week, I am so excited to talk about this roller coaster. And it's so funny because Gabe is the one who told me about this one. He knew about it, and now I am so completely hooked.
I actually knew about the whole Epic Universe thing before they even announced it, which was really cool because I don't normally get to say stuff about that. But
how the heck did you know?
I have my ways. I was in Florida. Do you not remember this?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
No, I kind of forgot about that
I actually knew about the park before they even announced it was a thing.
That is amazing. Oh my god, I didn't know that. But yes, so, and then Gabe's coaster, I've watched a POV of it though, and holy...
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
But with that, why don't you announce our coasters?
Okay. In the blue corner, standing at a height redacted, and a top speed of redacted, hailing from the Universal Studios universe and Florida, it is Minecart Madness. In the red corner, standing at a height of 206 feet, and reaching a top speed of 75 miles per hour, hailing from the RMC Gym and Poland, it is Zadra. Let the fight begin. So my coaster is going to be Zadra. I think this is an obvious bucket list coaster considering Iron Gwazi is my number one. And then obviously yours is the Minecart Madness, the Donkey Kong roller coaster that it's under construction. So it's on its way. It's coming.
Yes. And I know I'm super, super excited to talk about mine, but let's talk about yours first. Let's get the one that actually exists out of the way first.
So Zadra is an RMC steel hybrid coaster. So it has the steel track with the wooden supports. The really cool thing about Zadra is it is a ground up construction. This is not a conversion. This is not a redone coaster. It is a ground up from basically nothing to a coaster that RMC has done. It is located in, oh boy, I'm not going to say this correctly.
Just say Poland.
Malopolski, Poland? I hope I said that right.
Just look up and it was Energylandia, Poland, and it'll come up.
Yes. So this coaster has been on my bucket list basically since it was built in 2019. The really interesting thing about Zadra is that it was actually opened before Iron Gwazi. So what happened with Iron Gwazi is I believe it was also supposed to open in 2019, and then due to construction delays and COVID, it did not. So they were kind of supposed to open at the same time. The biggest thing is Zadra is a little bit taller, a little bit faster. It features one more inversion, but it is supposed to be a little bit more intense than Iron Gwazi on the G-force side as well as the pacing side of things. In fact, a lot of people that ride Zadra talk about it's not airtime focused. It's not an airtime focused ride, which is really different for RMC. I think the biggest thing with Zadra is that because it is a ground-up construction, RMC was able to do a little bit different stuff with it than they normally would.
Yeah.
And be a little bit more creative than they normally would be.
Yeah, when we talk about RMCs and when Gabe is talking about a ground up versus a conversion, usually what they would do is RMC would take over older wooden roller coasters and they would redo them. And I won't go into the specifics of that, but it's actually rarer for RMC to have a fully ground up construction. It's not something that they normally do. And so to do my research on this, I basically just watched a whole bunch of POVs of different RMCs that I've ridden and then kind of put them against a POV of Zadra, and oh my gosh. So What I did, because I thought they were the most comparable, and I know Gabe's going to yell at me for this one, but I did do Steel Vengeance, and the only reason I did Steel Vengeance was because of the size. Because the other ones I've ridden was Wildcat, and then I know Gabe's ridden Iron Gwazi, so I rewatched a POV of that, which, oh my god, insanity just from the POV. So I can already tell, I can already tell from just the POVs that Iron Gwazi, I think, is more intense even than Wildcat. And Zadra looked more intense than that. So
Well, I actually think the closest comparison to Zadra would be Wildcat's Revenge. And the only reason I say that is on the pacing aspect of things, as well as the
okay.
element aspect of things. They're
Okay.
basically just a grown-up version of what Wildcat's Revenge is. But just, because Wildcat's Revenge is a little more rapid fire. I guess Steel Vengeance is probably another really good comparison. But the thing with Steel Vengeance is it's a lot more airtime focused than Zadra is. You get what
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yes.
even comparing Steel Vengeance to Wildcat's Revenge, I don't think Wildcat's Revenge is a fully airtime centric ride either. And
No,
I think that's
it's
why
not.
it's a better comparison to Zadra.
Yes. And then the only other thing that I can really say, and this is really superficial, but of all of the POVs that I watched, Wildcat's Revenge is the prettiest, but part of that might also be because it's the newest. But
It is the
then
newest, yes.
it is the newest, but then it has bright, and I mean bright fire truck red track. And then Wildcat's Revenge doesn't have a completely wooden support system. It also has black supports. So you get bright red track contrasting with either black supports or really dark wood. It just looks so pretty to look at. Where Iron Gwazi is really pretty to look at though too, because that one's got purple track. And
Oh,
then
yes.
Zadra I think is red too. It's just not the bright red of Wildcat's Revenge.
Well,
It's more of like
it's
go
a
ahead.
little bit different shade of red, but you don't have the black contrast. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest difference.
Yes. But it looks from the pictures really it looks like Goliath imposing.
Oh, very, very much so. And that's because of the steel truss lift hill part.
Yeah.
I think the steel truss lift hill on Goliath and on Zadra is a very intimidating look. This also features a very similar zero G stall to Goliath, and that
I
is
watched
another reason why I want to get on this coaster.
I watched the POV and I saw that and you just sat there and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that might be a contender for the Goliath 0G stall."
Yes, yes, we
Oh my
love that
gosh.
stall on Goliath, and this is supposed to be really similar. So,
Oh yeah. Why we're talking about all these elements and stuff. Why don't you get into a layout of what this coaster actually does to you?
all right. So this coaster, unlike other RMCs, basically just turns and drops you into the lift hill. So there is not really a pre-lift section. But with that, you climb to the top of the lift hill fairly quickly because it is
Yep.
an RMC, and you drop 206 feet. The one thing I will say that is really interesting about Energylandia, it is in the middle of nowhere, literally.
Yes.
So instead of seeing towns or cities or buildings, it's farm fields. It's a
I
really
remember
weird.
that. It was
Yes,
such a weird contrast. Anyways.
it is. Just seeing this giant amusement park, like almost Cedar Point-esque amusement park, and that's just surrounded by farm fields over in Poland. It's just a really interesting nugget there. But with that, you drop off this 206-foot lift hill. You dive down between the supports. You do a very, very fast speed hill and a slight turn to the right before popping up into your very interesting. It's like an Outer Banked airtime hill, but it's not. It's weird. It's another RMC kind of weird element. But you get some really good airtime before diving back down and popping up into that zero G stall, which looks absolutely epic. Let's just be honest here.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you dive down and you pull up into a wave turn. Well, actually, I think I'd actually call that a twist and shout element because it kind of snaps the one way and then snaps back. Yeah, that's a twist and shout element.
Okay.
You kind of go through a sweeping bend after that and pop up into the only normal airtime moment on the ride. It is just a normal airtime hill. After that,
You know
kinda,
what? Oh, I'll go into it after you explain. Sorry. Keep going.
Yep. So you kind of twist back and forth again, and then you pop up into a 0G roll, which then sends you into a 180-degree turn. So you kind of roll into a banked turn, and you pop up into a double down airtime moment before turning to the left and back to the right into another 0G roll, which then sends you in a turn in the opposite direction, and then you hit the final brakes. So that being said, though, there's really only two airtime moments on the entire roller coaster.
Yes. Well, what I was going to say about that quote unquote normal airtime moment is having it in a ride like this, because everything else is just absolute insanity. It still is, well, first of all, it's, you're not doing nothing. It's an airtime moment, but that I just feel like even though it's a quote unquote normal airtime hill, because everything else is so weird, that in and of itself in this combination is also weird, and so you're just still like, what the heck was that?
Yeah. Well, the airtime moment that we're talking about though is a drawn out airtime moment. So yes, it physically looks like a traditional airtime hill, but you're talking like a 4-second ejector airtime
Oh,
moment.
damn.
So it's still a really, really good moment on this roller
Okay.
coaster. But looking at the stats a little bit, it is very comparable to Iron Gwazi. It's about the same track length. It's only 2 feet taller. It's just as steep, and the top speed is basically the same. The biggest difference, like I said, I think is the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these elements, besides the 0G stall, are a lot closer to the ground than Iron Gwazi. So you kind of get more of a rapid fire boom, boom, boom moment. It says the duration on here is 1 minute and 50 seconds, which I know is shorter than Iron Gwazi, even though it's the same track length.
Oh,
And
damn.
so I think it's just more of a pacing thing. Everybody that has physically ridden this, it says it's clearly noticeable, even compared to like a Steel Vengeance, that the pacing is just a little more rapid fire. So if you
Mm-hmm.
do enjoy that aspect of roller coasters, this would probably be your number one. That being said, I don't know. I have to get on it and ride it to really decide if it's better than Iron Gwazi. I think they're really comparable. It depends on if that 0G stall is good. Because if that 0G stall
Yes.
is good, like, then
Ooh.
that's the one. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
even comparing it to Goliath, I still think it's shorter.
I
Just
it
looking at pictures of it in the way the train runs through it, it's still not Goliath 0G stall. Where is my Goliath 0G stall RMC? You're disappointing me every time.
We talk about that dang zero G stall, and you literally, swear you float there for a good couple minutes before you come back down. It is absolute insanity. And we talk about that, how you have not gotten anything even close. You know what? Even if it's not the same as Goliath, if it comes anywhere close to what Goliath did, I think that's saying something, because we've written so many other things, and like I said, nothing even compares. Nothing is even remotely like that zero G stall. So if
even
it can do
even
even just a little bit of it.
even Iron Glossy has a 0G stall on it, and it's just too short. It's just
Yep.
too short, and maybe it's just because Goliath was the first time I ever experienced a 0G stall and this and that. But you can clearly, even just looking out the length of the track,
Mhm.
Goliath is longer. The other thing that you do have to realize about Goliath is it's not that much smaller than these coasters, because like Goliath has a top height of 180 feet.
Oh yeah.
So
No,
it's
we're
really not that much smaller than a Zadra or a Steel Vengeance or an Iron Gwazi.
yeah, well, and it's even crazier to think that Goliath is still only the steel topper. That's not a full
Yeah, yeah.
iBox coaster either.
But
But
that being said, Zadra is a bucket list coaster for me. I need to get on this thing. This is, if we ever do a Europe trip, we're gonna take like a month and just
oh my gosh, yes.
hit every park in Europe, and just like we'll go from like 100 credits to like 300 credits by the time we're done, and just like
Yeah.
be broke, but it'll be so much fun.
It'll be
So
totally worth every single penny. And Gabe is so right talking about comparing this to other rides. Is like watching your POV. I can already tell that Iron Gwazi would be better than any other RMC that I've ever ridden. I think it'll even be better than Wildcat, which is currently sitting at my number one. And I watched the Iron Gwazi, and then I immediately watched the Zadra, and I was like, I could tell they were different coasters, and I was like,
Yes,
I
yes.
honestly don't know without riding them which is better. And then I thought the exact same thing as you. As I was like, well, god damn it, I need to ride both of them.
Yes, yes. That's the biggest thing is even though comparing even comparing all three of the hyper hybrids, the Steel Vengeance to Iron Gwazi to Zadra, all three roller coasters are completely different. Even though they're both
Massively different.
even though they're both RMC, even though they're both hybrid, even though they're both over 200 feet, they are completely different rides. Like
Well, I mean,
completely.
even just Iron Gwazi and Steel Vengeance itself. Iron Gwazi is your number one, and Steel Vengeance is one of the coasters you loathe the most.
Yeah, I know. Like so it's really interesting that RMC has been able to really diversify themselves. You know how like, you've ridden one B&M Hyper, you've ridden them all.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
not true for these RMCs. Every time you get in an RMC, there's just something a little bit different or some element that you can't find on another one, or just like I said, Zadra's pacing. Steel Vengeance is airtime, where Iron Gwazi is a little bit more G-force and like intensity focused.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all different in their own way. So when you start talking about, which coaster is the number one, you might have four different people and they'll ride all three different coasters, and then you'll have still four different number ones. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
100%. When I went to go ride Wildcat, that was my 100th credit, and there was a guy wearing an Iron Gwazi shirt, and I think I've told this story before, but I asked him, I'm like, okay, so is Iron Gwazi better or this better? And he told me Iron Gwazi. Well, the guy behind him told me that Wildcat was better. So it, part of it is subjective too. It's just what you enjoy in a roller coaster. So it'll be really interesting once we finally get on it to see where it stands in your list.
absolutely. We'll have to almost plan it though that we like ride Iron Gwazi and then Steel Vengeance and then go over to like just so we can get like a refresh on everything. But
Oh yeah. That would be. Could you imagine like if we managed to save up enough money and could do like a roller coaster world tour and
oh
like hit like a
geez,
bunch of big
yes,
parks? It like took a whole year off or something. Oh, that'd be insane.
life goals here, right?
Yes.
With that though, we're gonna run out of time if we don't switch. So
Oh my gosh. Yes.
we're gonna switch to the Minecart Madness Donkey Kong ride. So just a little tidbit here. This is going to be at the new Universal Studios Epic Universe Park in Orlando, Florida. They are building multiple different roller coasters there, and it is set to open in 2025. I can't tell you when. I just know sometime in 2025. So it's under construction. This coaster doesn't actually exist yet, and that's why we have zero stats on this thing.
Yes. So Gabe is totally right. They are building this at Epic Universe in Orlando. But as I was doing my research, they are also building a Donkey Kong My Card Madness at the Nintendo World or Super Nintendo World over in Japan. And according to everything that I was reading, it was supposed to open at some point this year in 2024. I do not know when that's supposed to be, and I haven't seen any POVs or anything out about it, so I don't think it's open yet. But basically, it hasn't been confirmed at Epic Universe, but because of construction photos and like overhead
You
shots
can
and
tell
everything,
it's coming. It's definitely
yeah,
on its way. So all of the roller coasters, the entire park is actually officially under construction now, and it has been basically since the beginning of 2024.
yeah,
And even in 2023, when I was down there, you could tell they were, already surveying the land and, tearing out some of the trees and stuff, and just prepping everything for the construction of the park. So this has been in the works for obviously years now, but they just finally actually, officially announced the park and that there's going to be several different rides. There's a Super Mario World. There's supposed to be a How to Train Your Dragon World, as well as a couple other really cool things. The one thing I will say about this Minecart Madness ride, though, is it is being constructed by Universal Studios. It is not being
yes,
constructed by any ride manufacturer like a B&M or an Intamin. They're doing it in-house. And in fact, the patent filing is done through or done by Universal, which is really
yes.
interesting. It's an in-house build, so it's not, that's a little different too. You don't see that a lot anymore where they build their own rides.
Yes. So when we get into this coaster, why I am so unbelievably excited for this one specifically is for two reasons.
Theming.
Yes. Okay. That is reason number one is the theming. So first of all, this is going to be at a Universal Park. Second of all, this is going to be in Super Nintendo World, part of Mario, which is like, oh my God, huge. And then on top of that, this is a beloved character within the Mario universe. It is Donkey Kong. I mean, come on, who has not heard of Donkey Kong? So the theming, I have very high expectations. I am expecting so much about the theming of this ride and even just the park in general. In the process of researching for this coaster, I saw like pictures of the Super Nintendo World in Japan, and you literally look like you're in a Nintendo level. And then on top of that, from different like virtual recreations of what the park is supposed to look like, it looks like you're gonna go through one of the you know, like Mario tubes, and you're gonna come up in the very middle of Super Nintendo World, and I am so freaking excited. And then we also have the nostalgia factor when it comes to this theming. I mean, I feel like everybody who's anybody has grown up on some form of Mario, and me and Gabe have seen a lot of it. The first one that I remember is Super Mario Brothers on a Nintendo Game Boy Color that our mom had, that we played that game on. And it was like, it was our road trip video game. Me and Gabe take turns playing it. But then it's like, our cousins had a Nintendo 64 that we played Mario Party
I just
on.
remember the
We
DSs. That was so much
Yes,
fun.
the DSs. Oh my gosh, and how you could connect to each other and all play Mario Kart together. So yeah, Mario Kart was
Yes,
really
yes.
really big in our family too. So just all of that combined, I am so excited. And then on top of that, with the new movie that just came out, I freaking love that movie so much. I don't care what anybody says about it.
This is
I
a roller coaster podcast, Sam.
I know. I'm sorry. I
We gotta talk about the roller coaster.
Okay, fine. You want to hear the roller coaster? Let me give you the second reason why I am so excited for this. And this is definitely right up your alley, Gabe, because this is all technical. Universal patented back in like 2021 the design for what they are calling the boom coaster, which, first of all, can we talk about that name? Because that is awesome. I love it already.
Yes, it is.
But basically, what this coaster is designed to do is make it look like you're riding on a minecart like track, but that is actually going to be a false track to create the illusion of jumping over pieces of broken track, potential hazards within the track. And basically, the way that this is achieved is, instead of riding in a full roller coaster train, you're riding in a 4-person cart, 2 rows of 2. And then on the side of this cart, there's going to be like a boom arm that hangs down to what is the actual track for the ride. And it's basically a sideways turn roller coaster track that this arm then attaches to, and that's your actual track. So it leaves a very good space to create what is then a false track. And so this is another, it's just, I am so excited for what they might possibly going to be able to do, especially being a minecart ride. You'll be able to jump over broken track, you'll be able to jump over like spike pits, and I am just I do have a layout for you guys. I'm going to get into it. It is a virtually created POV, so I don't know how accurate this will be.
It's
And I
probably
don't,
just a generic POV. I don't, like you said,
yes,
it's probably gonna be a little bit different than the actual ride experience. That being said, this coaster is not going to be. It's not going to be like a stat monster. It's not going to be like the most
no,
crazy intense ride experience. It's designed for families. So just keep that
yes,
in mind when we talk about this. Is it's more of just a visual aspect and just, like airtime pops and stuff like that. It's not going to
yes,
be, there's no inversions or anything like that.
no.
So it is a family coaster. Just keep that in mind when we go through this POV. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. So
Well, yes, I was also going to mention that too. So thank you for saying that, because this is also half a dark ride as well, sort of. Half of it takes place in a building, and then half of it takes place outside. And that's because you're going to be going in and out of what is the Golden Temple from the Donkey Kong games. So let me just get into it. According to this POV, you're going to take a right out of the station, where you're then, and then I think this is also going to be a launch coaster as well, now that I say that, because it looks like you're launched up the hill, which creates the illusion that you're being launched out of the cannon that you find in the games. then so you're basically launched up a hill, and it kind of creates a little bit of an airtime hill, and this creates the illusion of you landing on the track, and then that leads into a descending and then ascending banked right turn, and that leads you inside the building into another airtime hill that gives you a broken track illusion, which then leads into a brake run that brings you back outside. You then drop off this brake run into another airtime hill with a broken track illusion. This one looking like you're jumping over a pit of spikes. You then have an ascending banked right turn that brings you back inside the building. You then have an S curve to simulate you swerving around a stationary mine car. And then you've lost a little bit of speed at this part, so I imagine that the later laterals aren't too crazy. But again, like Gabe said, this is going to be a family ride, so I'm not expecting anything too insane anyways. You then have an unbanked right turn that brings you into what looks like a second uphill launch. You then have another airtime hill, creating another broken track illusion, and then a very tight banked right turn that actually looks like it's going to give you some good forces on it. And then you pop up into another brake run, which brings you back outside. You then drop off the brake run. You have a descending banked current to the right, which then leads into what almost looks like a splashdown. I don't know if it's technically a splashdown because you're not coming down into the water, but it looks like you're going to go over water. So I don't know if it's going to create a splashing effect or not. And then you have the final breaks back inside the building. So that's again, it's a virtual POV. I don't know how true this is to either the Japan ride or the one being built at Epic Universe.
Yeah, the one thing I do know though is I've seen photos of like the construction site and everything. And just based off of like the aerial photos and stuff that I've seen, it looks like they're gonna hide the actual physical track that the train runs on really, really well. It's gonna be really hard for you to visually differentiate between the fake track and the real track. They're basically using like rock work and fake facades and stuff to cover it all up. And just even looking at pictures, again, this is all preliminary stuff. This is not the final product, so I don't know. But it looks really, really good. Like you can almost can't even tell that it's like fake track. Like it looks good. So
That
I'm
is
really excited to see the final product. I'm really excited to see the final product of this park. We're probably going to end up taking a trip down there next year just
oh
to
yeah.
we'll do like a Florida trip. We'll do Universal Studios, we'll do the Epic Universe, the new park, and then we'll try to get over to Busch Gardens since you haven't been there yet.
Yes,
And
that would be really nice.
that would be a fun trip. The only thing is that we're probably gonna end up doing it in the summer because it's cheaper and it's less busy. So it'll be hot. But I guess it just means
It'll
we'll get good rides on everything, right?
exactly. Everything will be running in tip-top condition. It'll be perfect.
But yeah,
No,
this
yes.
this
Talking
whole
about the
park
hidden
is
track.
exciting. This whole
Yes.
park is
Yes.
exciting.
Another ride, just as a quick tidbit that I saw that they were possibly building at this park, is a dueling coaster. It looks like, it looks really really cool. I'm excited for.
An
And then to
intimate
talk
launch dueling coaster themed to How to Train Your Dragon.
exactly, it's going to be insane. Not to mention that Universal is going back to their roots and bringing back a dueling dragon
and
coaster.
and not a racing coaster, like an actual dueling coaster.
Yes. So it looks very, very cool. And then to talk about the hidden track, like Gabe was saying, I thought making this a mine car ride as like their first foray into these boom coasters is actually a really, really good idea, because using a false track, quote unquote, already is going to hide that track below, and then just what they're doing with it, what Gabe said with those facades and rock work and stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm hoping it really creates that illusion super well, and I cannot wait to ride this thing. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, and the other aspect that is it's gonna be inside a building. Obviously, once you're inside and it's darker, it's gonna be really, really hard to see the fake track versus the real track. You know what I'm saying? Inside the building, the biggest
Oh
concern is
yeah.
when you get outside, how well will it truly be hidden? But everything, like I said, everything I've seen looks really, really good. We gotta pick a coaster here. I don't know how we're gonna do this, but I'll let you go first.
I gosh. I'm gonna have to go with Donkey Kong. This one is so biased because me and him have each picked what is our bucket list coaster.
Yes,
And
yes.
don't get me wrong, I really want to ride Zadra, and I know it's gonna be amazing when we do ride it. And then, like Gabe said, it'll be a Europe roller coaster, which there's a ton over there to ride. I'm just so excited for this. After doing the research, I'm like, oh my god, why is it not 2025 yet? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I bounced back and forth between the two rides quite a bit during this episode and also beforehand. I'm gonna have to go with Zadra, and the reason I'm gonna go with Zadra is because I am a ride experience guy. I am an
Yep.
intensity guy. I am a RMC guy. So like just Zadra is supposed to be kind of the pinnacle of RMC and like the best of the best of the best. And that alone, just I need to get on Zadra, especially being Iron Gwazi being my number one, and the fact that I absolutely hate. Well, I don't hate it. I say that all the time. I don't truly hate it. I just talk a lot
No.
of shit about Steel Vengeance. But
You hate the fact that everybody thinks it's the best in the world,
yes,
and it's
yes,
not.
it's
That's
not.
what that is.
No, and it's not even the best ride at Cedar Point. But you guys have already heard me say that. Anyway, my point
Exactly.
is Zadra is obviously my bucket list coaster, so I'm picking Zadra.
Yes. And I think this episode just once again really illustrates mine and Gabe's different taste when it comes to roller coasters. I am the theming queen, and I am going to love the theming on this ride. I hope it is amazing. And Gabe is your intensity king and
Yes,
pacing king, and he wants that intense pacing roller coaster, and that's what
for
Zadra will
sure.
hopefully give him. So
All right, well, we've wrapped up this episode. Next week, we have a very, very cool episode. It's going to be a special 1 hour long episode all about B&M. Now, we have mentioned B&M several times, but we really haven't dived into who they are as a company. We've just talked about a lot of their roller coasters.
yes.
B&M is the most consistently successful roller coaster manufacturer in the world. We need to talk about them. We're going to go into their history, their ride models, and basically who they are. Like I said, it'll probably be an hour-long episode. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be a lot of me
Yes.
talking, but just a really, really cool special episode for you. And then after that, we are going to tie that in and talk about non-B&M hypercoasters, since that's the
Yes.
hypercoaster is a B&M, basically it's like their pinnacle ride model. We're going to
Yes.
talk
Yep.
about hypers that aren't B&Ms. So that'll be a fun couple of episodes too.
It definitely will. I'm really excited about covering B&M because like Gabe said, it's a company that you find at almost every park everywhere, and they don't usually just have one coaster. They usually have multiple at each park. So it's really they like Gabe said, they're a staple in the roller coaster industry, a staple at roller coaster parks, and even just a staple on people's credit lists. I mean, me and Gabe have I think multiple on both of our lists. So
Yes.
and then on top of that, just the variety of different
Oh,
coaster
for
types that they
sure.
have.
For sure. The other episode that I do want to plug, it's about a month out. It'll be our next special episode. Sam requested
Ooh,
this.
I did.
Okay.
Oh, I like the tea. I like the gossip.
Yes.
I want
We
all the
are
dirty little
going
secrets.
to talk about a ride that used to exist at Kings Island. Some of you may know it as Son of Beast. I call it the biggest failure in the roller coaster industry.
Yes.
But yes, we're also going to talk about the original Rattler, because that kind of ties into how Son of Beast was created. That is also going to be an hour-long special. Like I said, that's about a month out. But just another really, really fun and cool, exciting episode to look forward to in our schedule.
Absolutely. But with that, thank you everybody for listening. As always, email us at coasterwarspodcast@gmail.com. It's in the description if you have any suggestions for any of our episodes. And then I do have our socials finally up and running. Go to any of your social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, type in Coaster Wars Podcast, and you should be able to find us. Gabe, are you still there?
I died.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, see you later, everybody. See you
Bye-bye.
next week.